Hello everyone, this is Malik, back again with another episode of the Couch Conversation on ThinkTalk. The last 5 episodes we discussed the imperfect system focusing on capitalism and democracy. My intention was to see how much we can potentially achieve on a communal level. What I found is that the saying, charity begins at home, is such a fact. And considering that, we will now be switching the focus for our couch conversation from showing the problems to discussing the solution and promoting a positive mindset about our complicated world. We will start from us as individuals by focusing on what we can single-handedly influence. If you're waiting for the world to get easier, it won't. If you're waiting for the economy to make sense or your boss to suddenly value you, you might be waiting forever. But what if you stopped waiting? What if instead of trying to change the system, you became so good, so grounded, so strong that the system had to adjust to you? That is what today's episode is about. Not fixing the world, but becoming immune to its nonsense. Now, don't get me wrong. You're not crazy for feeling like everything's rigged. The cost of living is up, opportunity feels uneven, and everyone on social media seems 10 steps ahead. I get it. But here is the truth. Systems are slow, but people are fast. You can't rebuild society overnight, but you can rebuild yourself, starting today. Let's start here. Complaining feels good. It releases dopamine, the same chemical you get from eating sugar or scrolling through TikTok. In fact, a psychologist called Martin Seligman proved this in the 1970s with his learned helplessness experiments. People who experienced repeated failure started believing they had no control even when they did. Does this sound familiar? That's basically the entire internet. We've turned complaining into performance art. The government is trash. The economy is finished. Nobody wants to work anymore. And so much more. Just complaining. But here's the thing. Complaining tricks our brain into feeling productive. When really, we have just spent energy venting instead of acting. Meanwhile, someone like Mr. Beast is out there filming another ridiculous video, taking all the ad revenue from the same system people say is unfair. Now, I'm not saying ignore the problems. I'm saying don't let outrage become your identity. Psychologist Julian Rother came up with something called locus of control. It is basically how much control you think you have over your life. People with an internal locus, like me, believe their actions shape their results. People with an external locus believe life happens to them. And guess what? Research shows internal people are happier, healthier, and even wealthier. I'm getting to the wealthy part, but this is what research shows. Take, for example, before I do this, I want to put a disclaimer out there. I have some examples prepared for today, and I just want to make sure that we know that it's based on what we publicly know about their lives, even if we don't believe in what they do, even if we don't see life the same way as they do. I certainly think there are particular bits of their life that we know publicly that we can all learn from. Now, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's take The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, as an example. At 23, he was broke, sleeping on his parents' couch after being cut from the CFL. He could have blamed the system, the league, his coaches, but he didn't. He pivoted. He built his body, built his mindset, and built his own brand. Now he's not just an actor, he's an economy. And we see many other stories like that as well. You might not have millions of followers or a film crew, But you have one thing just as powerful: your decisions. That's what we have, our decisions. And that's the start of any comeback story. And for some of us, it's not even a comeback, it's a come up. Our decision is the start of our come up story. Now, here's where it gets real. Blame is heavy, it feels righteous, but it keeps us stuck. The opposite of blame is not ignorance. Yes, you know that something went wrong. Yes, you know that someone did something bad to you. We know all these things. But the opposite of blame is building. And psychologists call this switch from blaming to building activation energy. The moment we take one small action, we make a plan, we send that email, we apply to that job, we go to the gym, our brain rewards us. Suddenly the fog lifts. We can't fix inflation, but we can learn a skill that makes us inflation proof. We can't fix our politicians, but we can fix our health, our craft, our income streams. Look at Oprah Winfrey, for example. She grew up in poverty, faced systemic racism and sexism, but instead of blaming the system, she built her own platform outside it, until it had to respect her. One thing that I know for sure is building is slow, but it compounds, and that's how power grows. Before we try to change the world, I have this rule called the 3-meter rule, or 3 meters rule. Let's try to fix everything within 3 meters of ourselves. Our habits, our body, our workspace, and our routine. Because we can't lead others if we can't lead our own space. Even Steve Jobs started by tinkering in a garage. Maya Angelou wrote from tiny rented apartments. Elon Musk built PayPal before he went on to SpaceX and Tesla. Change is always something that can start within our reach. That's how we should think about it. Some people want to change the world, but they can't even change their bed sheets. They're on one bed sheet for 1 month, for 3 weeks. Let's start with our 3 meters, and we'll see how the world starts to bend towards us. I'm starting this particular, this particular couch conversation as a journey that we can go on together. Let's start with that 3 meters, and we'll see what happens. Our brain literally filters the world based on what we focus on. Again, it's called something, psychologists I think called it reticular activating system. It's the same mechanism that makes us suddenly notice every car like ours after we buy one. If we focus on how unfair life is, we'll find proof everywhere. I know this for a fact. It's what we see, for example, when you consume too many content about how men and women are against each other, and then you just see it everywhere. About how marriage is not the right thing for people, and you just see it everywhere. That's how our brain works. If we focus on what's still in our control, suddenly, I'm living proof of this, does appear where walls used to be. So for me, it's even a bit different. I don't think I've ever not focused on my locus interna. I only care about what I can control. And I know for a fact it makes me seem more lucky than a lot of other people. Another example is Tyler Perry. For years, nobody came to his place. Empty theaters, huge losses, but he kept showing up, kept tweaking the formula until one night the right audience showed up and his entire life changed. He didn't wait for a system to validate him. He created his own system. And this is a fact because every time I watch a Tyler Perry show or a movie, I know it's Tyler Perry. It's just different from others. It's not the fact that it's the best quality or anything like this. In fact, we know sometimes the story can be quite weird, but still, we watch him and he makes a shit ton of money doing what he does because he created his own system. That's what happens when we stop waiting. Life just speed up. The world is unfair, but unfair is not unlivable. We cannot control everything, but we can control our strength, our focus, our learning, our integrity. And that's what we should do. We should stop waiting for better government, better bosses, better luck, and we start building better muscles, better systems, better habits. The system might be broken, but the individual, the person who takes responsibility and acts anyway, that person is still undefeated. That's it for today's episode of Couch Conversation. If you like what you hear, do not forget to like, subscribe to the channel as well, share with people that you care about, and see you next week. Cheers.